Wildflecken, 3 districts in the lower Franconian region of Bavaria. It appears to be a normal Rhön community. Nothing that a visiting hiker might see while walking through the idyllic landscape provides any indication of how eventful Wildflecken's recent past has been. By 1938, Wildflecken had about 500 inhabitants. In those times, a completely new development of the village began. It all changed so much. Sometimes it was explosive. There was life in the city, there was life in the community. The world was with us. This development can be traced back to 1937. The German Army Command begins the construction of a more than 7,000-hectare military training area in the Rhön. The plans are gigantic. The maximum width of the facility from west to east is to be about 11 kilometers, and the length from north to south nearly 12 kilometers. The troop camp is intended to accommodate about 9,000 men and 1,500 horses. The construction alone brings about 3,000 workers to the area who live in the camp directly on the site. A further 6,000 are also employed there, brought in daily via buses from the surrounding area to work. For the original inhabitants, this is a huge influx of work and money into a region that had previously been structurally weak. It was revolutionary. This wasn't the old Wildflecken with its 500 inhabitants anymore. There were suddenly hundreds of new faces left to integrate. A barracks had to be kept alive. And, of course, jobs were created. But the construction of the military training area in the southern Rhön in 1937 doesn't bring wealth and prosperity to all. In the planned training area are 7 villages and individual hamlets, whose approximately 2,500 residents are dispossessed of their homes and resettled until they can return in mid-1938. The training area was opened in the spring of 1938, and in the course of the establishment of the military training area, 7 communities were relocated. That is, the residents had to leave their homes and found new living space here in Wildflecken or in the area, but further away, in the district of Offenbach in Frankfurt or also in Bamberg. For decades, the new military training area will shape life and the people in and around Wildflecken in many different ways. The so-called Polish cemetery stands as testimony to this fact. Used during the war as a prisoner camp, the troop camp accommodated many thousands of Polish prisoners who, even after the liberation by the Americans, are unable or unwilling to return to their homes in Poland, which at this point is occupied by the Soviet Army. Up to 20,000 countryless Poles live and die here in the years following the war. So that was a difficult time. The Poles organized themselves as a city of their own and with a mayor, and they called this city Durchin. They were suffering because they were starving in such a way that in the Poland cemetery, which originated here, lie 544 persons, predominantly children, an incredibly large number. The military training ground arouses the interest of the U.S. military early in the post-war period. The infrastructure of the camp is largely preserved. Its proximity to the internal east-west German border is strategically extremely valuable. With the stationing of the American GIs at the facility starting in 1952, an exciting period begins for the inhabitants of Wildflecken. At that time, life pulsed day and night, and the Americans brought money to our community, endless lives, and a lot of trouble. But they fed whole battalions of innkeepers, up to 24 taxi drivers. They created car dealerships. The pizzeria to go that still exists today was good for a fast late-night snack on the way back to the barracks if one had drunk 5 beers and couldn't hold it. So it was good to have a pizzeria in the village. Millions of young American men will spend several months of their lives in the area of Wildflecken over the next 40 years. including such prominent figures as Elvis Presley and Shaquille O'Neal. The young soldier's presence creates a unique situation in the Federal Republic of Germany. The small community in the Rhön, comprising just over 3,000 inhabitants, becomes an integral part of the vibrant lifestyle of countless Americans.
Die Amerikaner brachten Arbeit.
The Americans brought in work, and they brought strangers. They brought in different ethnicities. We always had something, not urban. We always had something of a big city. There were many who married Americans. My own sister has been around for well over 50 years, married to an American, and is very happy. There are hundreds who did the same.
Mein Mann war Leutnant.
My husband was a lieutenant. He arrived in January '61. No, 62. We got married in November 1963 in the military band in Wildflecken in the barracks.
Very pretty here.
Yeah,
it's just,
sehr schön.
And we remember it very well as a nice place.
With the end of the Cold War, however, the stationing of American soldiers in Wildflecken also comes to an end. In 1994, the last Americans leave. Today, one of the Army's most modern combat simulation centers can be found at the military training area, and thus the area still draws NATO troops from all over the world to the Rhön. Another hub in the region is the industrial park at Kreuzberg, created from the former German Army base. And even if the cosmopolitan flair that emanated from the Americans here is no longer so obvious, the constant influx of new people and foreign cultures means that the military training area has made the inhabitants of Wildflecken into a particularly special kind of people.
The
Wildfleckener excels in every respect, both philosophically or politically or religiously, a great cosmopolitanism because they have got to know the world. Although it may not seem obvious to a visitor, somehow Wildflecken is not quite a typical Rhön community.